Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Festive Tech Calendar 2025. Before we proceed, um, a little about myself. My name is Arindam Mitra, and I am an Azure Cloud and DevOps architect. I am a three times Microsoft MVP in Developer Technologies and Azure Infrastructure as a Code. I'm also a Session ISAT speaker and speaker of the day for year 2023 and 25. I'm also an active speaker, a technical blogger, long distance runner, hiker, traveler, and I consider myself as a citizen of the world. My main focus is cloud adoption, architecture, automation, build, and run in Azure using infrastructure as a code and DevOps. All my details are recorded in my GitHub. If you can see, I have a small mind map, correlating everything which I said. These are all my awards, my MVP, speaker session, speaker of the day. And you can follow me in dev.to, LinkedIn, Twitter, Session ISM, Facebook. My email address are all recorded out here. Please feel to reach out to me in any medium which you feel deemed. Apart from that, these are my overall stats for the blog series and all my speaker sessions, the communities which I'm supporting, and so on. So I'll just scroll a little bit for you guys to have a look. So this is all my speaker sessions, my podcasts, talk shows, whichever I have done. So all the links and everything you can find out here. Okay. So without wasting any more time, what we can do is we can jump directly into our topic, which is Crossplane powered platform engineering. And this is my repository, Git repository, which is public and you can definitely access it. So let's jump into it. So in this topic, where I am going to talk about crossplane powered engineering, it's basically crossplane simplifying cloud infrastructure. But what exactly is Crossplane and what is the agenda of today's talk is listed in the screen. So today we are just going to be, this is a very, very sneak peek kind of a thing. I'll try not to make it a long video, but, to be very, very quick, a sneak peek that, how Crossplane works, like, what is Crossplane, a little bit about the key features, how it is integrating with Azure, what are the use cases, and a small demo regarding how you can deploy like Azure resource group using Crossplane. That's all is in the agenda, and then we'll finally delete the resource group using Crossplane. So yeah, what is Crossplane? Crossplane is nothing but a CNCF project, and the beauty of it is that it manages the cloud resources in a cloud Kubernetes native way. So what exactly how it does is with Crossplane, you are writing the Kubernetes YAML file and it will create the desired cloud resources. Like as I said that in our demo, we are going to create a small resource group directly from a Kubernetes cluster. Some documentation links are present here. The key features are like, provider config. So like a provider is something like a Kubernetes CRD, which is the customer resource definition. And here Crossplane is the external service. So we have to have those CRDs available in Kubernetes cluster. And provider config is nothing but, you're applying the provider YAML file. Managed resources are like, all the resources, that are managed inside the Kubernetes. Um, so the Crossplane is basically all the provider resources, like, here my provider is Azure. So these will be managed by Crossplane inside the Kubernetes cluster. So we will have a Kubernetes cluster, then we have a Crossplane, and then the Crossplane is going to manage the provider resources. Compositions are nothing but like, in order to create multiple managed resources, for example, like how we are doing in Terraform, for example, we are doing modules. So compositions is nothing but like that. Composite resources. Composite resources are nothing but, for example, if you are clubbing two or three modules, for example, you want to deploy a web app and a SQL server together. So you have a module for web app, you are having a module for Azure SQL Server, and then you want to do it like, together you want to deploy. You don't want to deploy it, separately, like, one module and then you're running another module as a part of pipeline. You don't want to do that, but you want to do it as a holistic way. Then, then you are just going to use the composite resources, which is nothing but blueprints. That's all. Okay. So these are few key features of Crossplane. So, feel free to go through the documentation. It is very well documented. And this is a pictorial view that, how it is happening. As I said, there's a Kubernetes cluster, then there's a Crossplane inside the Kubernetes cluster installed. Then we are, providing the which provider we want to use. So here we are using the Azure provider, which is helping us to deploy the, the provider resources. Here, for example, is resource group. So this is how the diagram and everything. By the way, all the diagrams, here, I didn't draw it. To be very honest, I used ChatGPT to generate all the diagrams, which was very, very convenient. I just gave the appropriate prompt. Okay, so primary use cases of Kubernetes is very, very simple. That, in a very simple language, that earlier Kubernetes was only used for containerization and deployment, like only for application containerization and deployment and everything. Now, with Crossplane, Kubernetes can be also used to provision infrastructure using the same YAML file. So there is, and you're applying the YAML file with kubectl, which means that if you're having a Kubernetes knowledge, because you are containerizing your application and everything, that same knowledge can be used, or rather reused, for infrastructure deployment. So that's a huge, huge benefit which I see, and that is for me is a primary use case. Few additional use cases are GitOps based infrastructure management. Again, it is something like, it's basically a drift management, something if a drift has been observed uh, using tool FluxCD or Argo CD, Crossplane creates those resources. So it's just like a GitOps based infrastructure management. Second is multi-cloud abstraction. I haven't tested this, but I've only played with Azure. So this is more at the moment for me a thought. I mean, like more a theory rather than practical. But this is one of the use cases which has been listed in the official documentation. Next is the self-service platform, which is completely true. Like, we can use, like, rules, templates, and permissions using Crossplanes, and this can be definitely be used by the platform team as a part of self-service. Policy and security governance is the fourth one. Policy and and security governance is nothing like, it is similar to Azure policies and everything. So uh, we have to define compositions and everything. We define compositions and blueprints and everything. And then, there's a constraints or limits and so on and so forth. And this is something which we do. So you see here that, we have listed down that constraints and limit. So, you are basically following the same concept of Azure policies where you are limiting that, okay, you can only deploy in certain locations, or the size of the VMs, or no public IPs, and so on and so forth. So next is, like, we would quickly jump into the practical part of it. So here, the requirement is very, very simple. AKS cluster. So here the requirement is very, very simple that, we have an AKS cluster, kubectl, kubelogin, and Helm. These are all the four components which we require. So we have like the kubectl, kubelogin, and Helm all installed in a local laptop, or if you want to deploy in a VM, you can deploy in a VM. And we have this AKS cluster, which has been spin up here. So you can see that I have a small AKS cluster and everything. And for the purpose of this demo, I have just, what I have done is I've taken a screenshot a little bit so that you know how my test environment looks. And I've also documented what is the configurations I have configured for my AKS cluster. So this is something. Feel free to browse here. I'm not going to go through that, how to install kubectl, kubelogin, and all kind of things. So it is all listed down here if you want to check in. This is something, when I was doing, I thought it would be good for the users to know that how I did it from the very beginning. I also land up into a few of the errors, kubelogin errors. So have a look into this. Um, that's all. So, and then as the part is where we start to do this. So here you can see that, we have this uh, command, like, how to get the credentials of the Kubernetes. So all these commands, if anybody who has used Kubernetes, they already know it. You can click on the connect button and everything is provided here. So you don't have to learn these commands and everything. Okay. So this is something, and then followed by you are checking by kubectl get nodes. For example, here, um, if you look into this one, so if you, I've already run those commands to check. So if you see get nodes, you will be basically able to see that all the nodes are out here and everything. Okay. So coming back to this one. And then, this is a YAML installation and so on. And now we are in the part where we start the actual thing. So the first thing which we do out here is that we create a namespace. So here, this is a command, how we are creating a namespace. But in our case, we have already created everything. And I will just show you that, so if you um, see the get namespaces and everything, you will see that, AM Crossplane is already there. Now, after the namespace is created, the first thing which we do is, we add the repository, the Helm repository for the Crossplane. You see out here, this is the command. You do this, this is already there, and then we update the Helm repo. So the outputs are already there so that, you can cross-check when you are doing in your own environment. Then finally is that, we are installing the Crossplane in the AM Crossplane namespace, the namespace which we have created earlier, and this is the command. Again, this is the output which I've recorded. Okay. Then what you can do is you can validate if the Crossplane has been installed. So this we can check because we have already so so you can see that all the pods related to the Crossplane is running under the namespace AM Crossplane. So these are all the Crossplane things. Then what we have is very simple is, we check the deployment. You can check the deployment, but for the for the time, conscious of being time, I'm just skipping it. And then you have the Azure provider. So then once the Crossplane is done, now we are installing the Crossplane provider. Because this is going to give me the cross resource definitions, the CIDs and everything. So here you see that we have this whole Crossplane definition. So this is the Azure provider definition which we have created. Okay, and once you have installed this Azure provider, you will get something similar to this, like this. Here, what we have done is, we have installed, if you see, we have installed the Crossplane contributor family for Azure. and it by default it also comes with provider Azure network, which means that for every resources which you want to deploy using Crossplane in Azure, you have to have the respective provider. So the one which I have installed, it is like for the Azure family and for the network. But for example, if you want to do, for example, virtual machines or maybe Azure SQL or something, then probably you have to have the required provider similar to this. You have to install it so that it gets the required CRDs. So, for example, I can show you right now um, kubectl get CRDs. Okay, so if I so here you see that since I have deployed that network part, you will see that all the network components, VPN, Watcher, virtual hubs, if I see the peering part and everything. So this is again the peering part. Then there is public IPs and everything. So you will see every single thing out here as a provider. Okay. Now, the next part is very simple, is the part where we are going to create the service principal, because now we have Crossplane installed and we have the Azure provider installed, but how they are going to connect, right? So something has to be there, some identity has to be there. So we create this whole service principal, and here you see that we are giving the role as owner and the scope as the subscription. Once this gets created, then we are basically copying this whole thing, maybe, or you can redirect as an output, and then you can save it in Azure credentials file. And with this, you are then creating a Kubernetes secret. So the Kubernetes secret, when it is created, this is basically like, it will be here. For example, if I go here in Kubernetes, then in the Kubernetes resource, in the Kubernetes resources, if you scroll down and go to configuration, and then you go to secrets, and then you select the AAM Crossplane namespace, you will see Azure secret. This is the name of the secret. And now if I open this, you will exactly see all the values which I have done there. So coming back here, so this is the secret which I have created. And if you see out here, the name is Azure secret. Okay. Now I'm describing the secret out here. So if you see, if I run this command, okay, sorry, yeah, you'll see that this is the Azure secret. Of course, you cannot see it because it's opaque, but you can of course see it from the portal if you have the required rights. So this is how I'm creating. So first, I created a service principal. And then, once the service principal is created, it gave me all the client ID, secrets, and everything, tenant ID, all the things. And then based on that, I stored it in a JSON file, and then I applied it as a Kubernetes secret. So once this is done, then this is my provider config, where what I'm doing out here is I'm providing a name for my provider config, and then I'm specifying it as like this is the namespace where you are going to do, and this is the secret which you are going to include, and then I'm applying this Kubernetes YAML file, which is provider config.yaml, and I'm applying it. Once this is applied, then your Crossplane knows that, okay, I have to deploy all the Azure resources and everything into this proper subscription. Because today I have a single subscription where I have a Kubernetes cluster and I am deploying all my resources in the same subscription where my Kubernetes cluster is hosting the Crossplane. But it might be that in the production network, your Crossplane is completely in a very, very different subscription, right? And then from there, you have to deploy into multiple other subscription all the resources which you want. So it's very important that you understand this, that how everything is working and how everything is coming together. Then, I showed you that how the CRDs are working. The most important thing is that, you have to have the cross resource definitions available. Otherwise, your resources will not be deployed. You will always get an error. So today, when I am deploying a resource group, I'm ensuring that in my CRD, the resource group are available. So let's check a little bit more. And you see, this is basically the most important part. So uh, anything which is listed here, you can deploy. If it is not listed there, then you have to go to the Crossplane documentation, GitHub repository, and see and find the required provider and the provider config file, apply it, and then you will see is it has a part of the Kubernetes resource definition, and then you can apply it. So once this is here, now we are all set. Now we are all set, and then you are going to just create the required RG YAML file. Okay. So this is something. So this is already created, and you see that now I have given a name called AM100. Okay. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this command, copy it, go to my terminal, okay, apply it, okay. And if you now it got applied, and if you see out here, um, if I go to the resource group at the moment, you don't see here, but if I refresh it, again, if I refresh it, and you will see AM100, okay, so it's there. So this is how you are deploying it. Now, similarly, it's the same thing. You don't need any, for example, you don't need any YAML file to delete it, but you simply run this command, delete resource group.azure.upbound.io. But how did I get this? How do I know that I have to use this? It is again from the CRD. If you go here, resource group.azure.upbound.io, you are getting the whole I mean, like, kind of a fully qualified domain. And then you're just specifying which resource group you want to delete. So if I copy this and run it, it will just delete it. So this is like, this is a very, very small and a very super fast video where I just wanted to show you the functionality of Crossplane and a little bit explain it. It's not a deep dive kind of thing where I'm explaining you every bit and byte, but I most probably will record few other sessions, and put it in my YouTube channel. But for festive calendar, I thought that it would be a fantastic opportunity for me to show you that how without Terraform and Biceps, you can still deploy infrastructure using Crossplane. And most importantly, if any application is completely using Kubernetes, then it doesn't make sense to me that you have to deploy resources with Terraform and Biceps. You can keep it in a very Kubernetes way. So you're deploying application, containerizing application with Kubernetes, and you are deploying infrastructure also with Kubernetes. So let's quickly check our portal. So here, I'll just refresh the whole page. It would be much easier. And you see that AM100, that resource group is no more here. So thank you so much for attending my session. And everything here is documented in my GitHub repository, whatever I have shown. So feel free to browse at your own time. and all the things which I have used, all configurations, all YAML configurations, everything, commands, everything is here uploaded in my GitHub repository. Feel free to browse. Um, and there are a lot other things in my GitHub repository. Feel free to browse, connect with me, and if you have any questions, happy to answer. Again, thank you to all the organizers of Festive Calendar, Gregor, Richard Hooper, and everybody, giving people like us around the world such beautiful opportunities to present our work for the community. Again, this is Arindam signing off.